All right, so usually what puts the fear in people's eyes when someone calls for an interview is because it's TV. How many of you all have been interviewed on TV? How many of you all like being interviewed on TV? Yeah.
That gentleman over there.
Yeah, I saw that. And so hopefully this process will help you be have less anxiety about going in front of the camera because, again, these people, media are your friends. So you come prepared and it'll all go well. So the one thing, most important thing to remember about broadcast is that it is very fast and your information is going to be condensed to about 10 to 15 seconds of information, which on the face of it doesn't sound like a lot of information. But you'd be surprised once you look at it how much you can actually say in that amount of time. So first thing to remember is most likely only one or two of your sentences will be aired or printed. And it's usually the first thing that comes out of your mouth. So I always recommend that when you're going to be interviewed, especially for TV, make your most important points right up front. The reporter asks a question and you have it formulated in your head because more than likely the first 10 or 15 seconds will be what is used. On the back end, same thing, the last 15 or 20 seconds, because usually the reporter will ask you, is there anything else you'd like to add, or how would you sum this up, or to sum it up? And again, you're going to make your most important points right then, and that's probably what you're going to see or hear on the air. And order matters. Again, what you say first or what you say at the end is what is going to be aired.
But yeah, I worked at a TV station once in which all our stories had to be a minute 15, which, if you think about it, that is 7 sentences, which is not a lot to get information out. So here they might have come to you and interviewed you for what seemed like eternity, and yet probably 2 sentences that you said will get on the air. And that's why it's important that the first thing that you say sometimes is what makes it on an air.
Yeah, a lot of people. I've interviewed several of you for Carolina Minutes, and you have done a 20-minute interview, and again, I think Angela, I've done with you many times, and it's 15 seconds.
It's not that we don't care about it.
Okay, so bridging. This is a technique that is useful if you are a reporter asks you a question and it's not exactly the question that you were expecting or really wanted to answer, so you answer the question and then you're going to try to get to the other side to say what it is you want to say. So you'll use a technique such as, well, this is what is going on. However, let me tell you about the research that I have and how we can make things better. And that way you can get from one point to the next point and not making an awkward transition.
Well, what Megan had said earlier about reporters being generalists, they don't know everything about your research, and so lots of times the questions that they ask are just off the wall maybe, or not really the ones that you want to answer. So probably nice and say, that's interesting the way you phrased it, but I would also look at it this way and give the information a little bit more of what your research is about. And those
some examples, yeah. What I would really like to talk about, if they ask you a question that's so general that you don't know where to go with it, try to answer with one line, well, this is what it is, but however, this is what I could really talk about. This is where my area of expertise is.
Yeah. Before we leave that topic, let me add.
Yeah. If the sometimes reporters, again, because they don't know everything that you're doing, may not ask a question that you think is really relevant to the interview. Good line before we leave that topic. Let me add, this might be something you might find useful, and very often it might be the most important part of that interview. The reporter didn't phrase the question correctly, so you never got to it. Here's a good one. You always want to mention the Arnold School of Public Health in your appearances on air, obviously promotion. You see
Dean Chandler will appreciate this.
There will be a graphic that comes up underneath your names telling where you work. So any instances where you can either wear the logo, say the logo during the interview without making it sound like you were interjecting it has no business being there, but it should come up in a natural sort of mention of the school. In practice, get in front of a mirror and practice. You're not going to have the questions ahead of time, but you'll have some general ideas about what the reporter is interested in. So if you've never done this before, go in front of the mirror and practice. Or practice with a colleague, have them ask you some questions. And that way you become a little more comfortable in speaking about your subject, looking the person in the eye, and getting a little practice before ahead of time. And again, be realistic. We talked about reporters have a finite amount of time. If you're a radio or TV reporter, your deadline come fast and furious. Some reporters have morning newscasts, noon newscasts, 5:30 newscasts, 6 o'clock newscasts, and they have to have a story in each one of those newscasts. So when they call asking for an interview, it's going to be what we call quick and dirty. They're going to be in to interview you inside of 10, 15 minutes and out. And so they want to get the meat of the story and be gone.
And by be prepared too, this is, every morning we put out a day book of which, we say topics. I think there's something on there about the Iran nuclear. Doesn't affect Arnold School. But if you see something in the news that's kind of in your area, I'm sure Megan would love it if you called her and said, hey, I can talk about that.
And that's one of the things we do a lot every day is put that out. And sometimes it's events at the university, sometimes it's things in the news, and we'll say we have this professor who's an expert on that and is available these times for things. So if you see something, because we don't know what everybody's area of expertise is, we try to, but we don't. So if you see something coming up in the news and you know something's coming up or an anniversary or something's coming up, you let us know, we can promote you.
Yeah, and just to add, even if you're not available all day, but you've got a 2-hour time frame or something, we can manage those expectations with reporters so that they know if you want to talk to them, you've got this window. So we'll work with you on that.
And I just wanted to add too, we have a signage over there. You can sign in. One of the questions on it is, do you want to be part of the rapid response email list? So sometimes Megan will email us and say, hey, do you have any experts on fill in the blank? And what we'll do is, if we don't know, a lot of times we do know, but if we don't know, we'll just send an email out that says, does anybody do this, or know people that do, please give us suggestions. So it's real important that
that's really helpful. Thanks.
Be accessible. I don't anticipate no comment coming from anyone in this room. There's very little contentious information that you're going to be giving to reporters, but in the event that there is something that you do not want to respond to, avoid saying no comment, because it makes you either look guilty or dishonest, as if you want to withhold information. So a way to avoid saying that is to explain, this is an area outside of my area of expertise. This is above my pay grade. This is something I can help you find the person who can respond to this, but avoid saying no comment, because that will go on the air. Just because you say no comment doesn't mean it will not be seen.
Or they'll say the professor refused to comment, which is almost even worse.
Yeah.
Be quotable. So you're going to, in your 10 to 15 seconds of your soundbite, you want to use your time to say something that the viewer is going to say, oh, and it's going to resonate with them. They will remember what this particular tidbit of information that you passed along. Create a catchphrase. So you want it to be understandable and relatable, not above their heads, because it's information, especially from the Arnold School, that is useful to a large population in South Carolina. And lastly, avoid going off topic. You have a reporter there who's there to find out specific information. Try to keep your responses to that particular subject. If you have something else that you'd like to talk about, perhaps schedule it for another time. Say, I've got some other great research that's similar to this. You might want to get with me again later. All right. So you got all the techniques down about how to respond to the reporter. Again, reporters are not scary people in general. They're generally very nice and want you to look your best and present your best. So going on camera, you want to be friendly, open. Does anyone know what I mean by open?
Yeah, not like that.
Yeah, none of this, closing your arms, welcoming to the reporter. And that also helps you, I think, loosen any anxieties that you might have if you're a little more loose with your body language. Try not to sound official. Again, you're talking to an audience that needs this information and may not necessarily have a college degree, may not even have a high school degree. And so you want to talk to them in language that is relatable, but not talking down to them at the same time. I often say to scientists, explain it to me as if you're talking to your mother, unless your mother is a scientist. Sitting, if the interview is being conducted sitting down, say you're in a studio with an anchor, sitting at the edge of your chair, leaning forward, gives you more confidence in your posture, makes you look interested, and keeps you from slouching in your chair, which you're prone to do depending on if you're sitting on a sofa, your inclination is to lean back. So lean forward and speak in short sentences. A lot of times when you get nervous, sometimes people will keep talking. And if the anchor or reporter is not assertive enough to interject, then the person just keeps talking, and then the interview tends to veer off into Never Land. So be clear with your statements and make your point.
Look at the reporter and not the camera. That's really important because it makes you feel more relaxed. I mean, you're talking to the person and not to the camera. Lots of times people say, they'll have a great conversation. Well, I noticed when I was a reporter, I would have a great conversation with the person, and then as soon as the camera started rolling, they would freeze up and they would try to look into the camera. And you'll notice that the camera's not going to kill you, so just delay. So it also can be relaxing to actually look at the person instead of into that camera and freezing up.
Smile, have the open face. I think with nerves, a lot of people forget to smile. They're concentrating on what they're going to say, how they look, trying to think ahead of what the next question might be. So if you've had a little time to establish a rapport with a reporter, it makes it a little easier. And by then, you have established some trust so that you're not panicking about what's next to come.
It's similar to if the reporter shows up, especially TV reporter shows up and they're the only ones there, they'll ask you probably to stand still and almost stay at attention or keep your feet planted where you are. Because lots of times people will then make a comment and go like this, and then they'll have to adjust the frames to put you back in. So if you're standing up.
Okay. Again, reiterating, if you are sitting in a chair, sit up straight. As your mother used to tell us, sit up straight and lean forward. You want to sit at the edge of your seat. When you're standing for a TV interview, there's a tendency to do one of two things. Either stand like this or with your hands behind your back. You want to find a happy medium someplace, because sometimes you may need to use your hands to illustrate something. So without getting too crazy with your gyrations, keep your hands like this, or if you have to make a point, about the middle of your rib cage. You don't want it in front of your face. What to wear? Well, in this heat, it's often difficult to dress for the occasion. If you're going in the studio, obviously you have a lot more flexibility in what you can wear. If you're going to be doing a formal interview, say on the set, a suit for both men and women is appropriate. A nice dark suit so that you don't upset the iris of the camera. Nice collared shirt, men with a tie. If you can wear something that has a logo on it, that would be appropriate as well. For TV, you have to be especially careful about wearing anything that's got a pattern in it. You know, actually, don't wear anything with a pattern in it. Your top would make the camera go crazy. It would be used as a chest pattern. You want to wear just very conservative dress. Jewelry, eyewear, simplicity is the key. And if you're outside in the summertime here in South Carolina and you have to face the sun for the camera shot, preferably no sunglasses, and definitely not sunglasses where they are mirrored sunglasses, yeah. But in general, take the sunglasses off. It'll be a little painful for maybe 5 or 10 minutes of the interview, but it'll go.
And on campus, we're fairly business casual here, so I mean, for men, a sports shirt that maybe has a USC logo on it, perfectly acceptable. You don't want to wear a logo of another college. We've had that problem in the past, so please try to avoid that.
And
I was going to say, for TV it says do not wear white clothing. It might be, they might ask you to wear a lab coat, especially if you go into the lab. And the way TV equipment has changed over the years, it's okay. Just don't wear the head to toe, good humor bar, good humor man clothing. But
yeah, I was going to say that the lab coat,
yeah,
especially for this group, would be appropriate. What not to wear? The patterns in this shirt, the jewelry. Again, nice pearls, a couple strands. This is a pattern. I don't know that you can see it in this of the man here in the center. I think it's a pattern.
it's kind of a checked pattern, I guess.
And then again, a pattern over here. Just try to avoid anything that's going to, again, cause you to have to adjust your set, as they say. It'll play with your eyes. Practice, practice, practice. Okay.
One thing I want to mention before we get to the questions is the reason why we exist is we are here to help you with these things. We don't expect anybody to watch this PowerPoint presentation and then go out there and be able to conduct expert media interviews at the drop of a hat. Again, this is just an introduction. Anyone who's interested, we can sit down with you. We can do one-on-one media training with anybody who's interested to come to our office. We can even put you in front of a camera, ask you some questions, and then watch it and give you some feedback. So those are services that we do totally for free for anybody who's interested in that. So let us know if that's something that you might like to follow up with. Also, if you do get a call from the media, they might call you out of the blue and say, hey, I came across this online. I would love to talk with you for an upcoming article, or would like to shoot you for a story I'm working on. The thing that we really appreciate you doing is picking up the phone and calling us and letting us know. Not because we don't trust you to handle those, but we usually like to coordinate those. Then we can follow up with the reporter to see if there's anything they need, and we can look out for that story in the media. Once we see it, we can help share that with the rest of the campus community so they know that you're out there doing great things. So coordinating with us is something that we really very much appreciate.